Let's look at the offensive line. So we've talked about the defense a lot. Let's now look at the offensive line. And, Georgia Southern's defense is terrible. You told me throughout the week, this is a bad defense. We knew that. So it was going to be buffet style. USC was going to eat on offense. It did. Earlier in the show, Roger Dodger, one of our loyal viewers in the chat, he mentioned that Georgia Southern got 26 first downs. So Georgia Southern chewed up a fair amount of clock. Georgia Southern was able to control the ball to a certain degree. So USC scoring 59 points looks a lot better when you do realize that Georgia Southern kept the ball a decent portion of the game. If USC's defense had gotten off the field a lot more quickly, you would have seen USC score in the 60s, maybe even once again in the low 70s. So that point is well worth mentioning. But Ethan, Georgia Southern was never going to be a test for this USC offensive line. And so, Tuesday night, we will dive deeper into the matchup with Purdue, and we will also talk a lot more about the Big Ten as well. But just keeping it focused on USC, any concerns at all about the ability of this unit to go from cupcake to Big Ten and kind of make that transition a lot more smoothly than what we saw last year? Now, of course, Michigan is a much tougher Big Ten road opener than Purdue. It's like an Atlantic Ocean size gulf amount of space between those two programs. But nevertheless, it is still a conference opener. It is still a road game. And the challenge posed by Purdue, it's not even a reflection on Purdue. It's more a reflection on Missouri State and Georgia Southern. The level of challenge is going to go up. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about this offensive line's ability to just make that transition smoothly and mash and really lean on one of the Big Ten's not that great defensive lines?
I'd say right now my concern about the offensive line is like a 4. I just think it's because a lot of my concerned energy has gone to the defense rather than the offensive line. That's not what I expected at the beginning of the season, but that's just ultimately what's happened. I think that they deserve a lot of credit for the first couple of weeks, despite it being weaker opponents. Georgia Southern didn't get any sacks yesterday. That's worth mentioning. So I think, which Georgia Southern's pass defense is a lot better than its run defense. We kind of knew that they were going to dominate the run defense, but they kind of managed to shut down Fresno State's passing game. So, and Fresno State's quarterback is not great, obviously, but so it was good to see, them do great in pass protection as well, not allowing a sack. And I think my one area of concern, the reason why it's a 4 and not a 2 or a 0, is just because it seems like they still haven't quite figured out the personnel yet. I mean, we had the kind of a shocker a couple hours before the game that Micah Banuelos was starting over Alani Noah, and I was just kind of like, what? Alani Noah was the best offensive lineman in the game last week, so why the sudden switch up all of a sudden? And then obviously you have the ongoing center battle as well. I think confidence in Killian O'Connor is building. I mean, he's one of only 3 players who's been a captain both weeks, along with Jade Mayava and Eric Gentry, who are very clearly, the dudes on the offense and defense. So I think, he's played well. Confidence in him is building. But yeah, that's just kind of the one thing that does evoke a little bit of concern is when push comes to shove, when the offense is struggling, do we know who we're going to turn to, or are we still figuring that out? That's, kind of what. And Jeff Rodriguez in the chat says Alani Noah was some kind of behavioral thing. That's still concerning, even if, we know he's a good football player. If he's, if we're having to punish him for behavioral issues off the field is just as much a concern as on the field. So hopefully he gets that figured out. But yeah, that's one little bit of concern. I think that they've played well. I think we're really going to start to learn about this offensive line against Purdue. And just because, their defense has been pretty decent in their first 2 games. Again, they're playing cupcake teams, but they've handled business. It's still a Big Ten defense versus these other, cupcake defenses that we've played. And then, Michigan State as well. So maybe I'll have a little bit more concern after those games. I certainly hope I don't, because I've been pleasantly surprised by the good play by the offensive line thus far and how deep it seems to be. I mean, not deep in the sense that like we have a lot of stars, but just that we have a lot of guys who, fans and insiders around the program seem to be excited about, who have put up decent performances these first couple weeks. So it feels similar to the defensive line in that we have a lot of guys who could step up. It's just the concern now is more, do we know who those top guys are? And when push comes to shove, are we going to pick the right ones too?